My name is Samara Johnstone. My family have been farming on Islay now since 1970s. It's really been developed as an extensive beef and sheep farm. We don't really have the climate for arable. Farming on Islay, we're so lucky. We've got such an amazing landscape. The community here as well, we still have very much a farming-based community, which is nice. You know, there's very few places around the UK where you still have that, and everybody gets involved with local sales, local show. It's just a fun place to farm. Ed and I, we took it on in March 2020 and have just been working away, trying to adapt the farm in a way that we're able to farm. We both have different backgrounds. Myself, I've just been a full-time vet for over 10 years, and then Ed, he's a biologist and has been trained in that area. So we're not machinery savvy. And the way the farm has been run has been very machinery biased. So we've been trying to adapt it that we can still run it as a functioning farm, but with less machinery. And with that, can we make it viable, profitable, bring up healthy, good stock and look after the farm, look after the soil, just try and make it a happier, healthier farm, if that makes sense. You know, have wildlife everywhere as well as the stock. Gradually, over the time that we've been here, it definitely feels like our climate on Islay is getting wetter. And so that's made it trickier to bring up continental breeds. So we've reduced our numbers and we have started using Innovis tups, so line-bred tups, to potentially lamb outside. Prior to that, we've been lambing inside, and we find it's very labour intensive and just completely unprofitable. With the cattle, it's been very much Limousin based and running at quite a high number. So again, we've reduced numbers and we introduced in 2019 a new bull team. One was a Hereford bull, and the reason for him was to put on Limousin heifers. One, for easy calving for the heifers. Two, to produce crossbreds that hopefully are a bit more milkier. And three, also for meat quality. So recently this year we opened a farm shop on the farm, and so we want to be able to produce a product with 0 miles and that actually is good eating quality and that we can also finish here on the farm. We found with the Limousins, after a bit of experiment, that we weren't able to finish them, you know, especially just on grass. They would need grain, and we don't have arable here, so we'd have to get it in from the mainland. So we've got a small nucleus herd of Highlanders that live out in the hill on the other farm as well. We just started getting pedigree shorthorns, and the reason for that is, again, to bring in some hardiness into the herd so they live outside longer, can live on wet ground, and potentially produce some pedigree breeding animals. It's such a varied landscape. Through this valley, it's really, really wet, and over the hill we have a lot of peat. So it's not great for every animal, but we use the cattle really to ensure that we try and get on top of rushes and weeds. Slowly, we'll try and use the grass more efficiently, i.e. doing more rotational and mob grazing. And so the cattle are perfect for doing that. You know, it's a lot easier to use the cattle for that than the sheep. Generally our sheep would just go everywhere, and with the cattle we can use them to target areas for grazing. And we're lucky here in this valley that we've got a real varied population of wildlife and really important birds that really need the cattle and the way that they graze for how they're breeding and how they're eating. So we'll use the cattle more and more for that. We're now in one of the greatest periods of change in the farming industry. You know, I think for the last 30 years and growing up myself on this farm, There's been little change. You know, we've been able to afford all the fertiliser, we've been able to afford the fuel, and so we've all trickled along, and it's been fine. And people have been able, you know, you sell your cattle, you sell your sheep, and it always pays its way eventually. You might have a bad year, you might have a good year. Young people going into farming now, I wouldn't be surprised, there'll be a lot questioning, well, should I really be doing this? Because a lot of our products that we're buying into the farm now have doubled, if not tripled in price. So here we're going to try and improve the way that we farm to work with the environment and try and make that sustainable. And I think that will be the same story around the UK, where we actually really start to think seriously about what we're doing with our land and how can we look after this for the future.